Moving to Final Fantasy XIV. Now, Ernest, I know you haven't played this, so I'll go through this. My thoughts.
I did play it for 2 weeks.
Right, but you played Realm Reborn, right?
I played before Realm Reborn.
Oh, I don't even know if that was the Realm Reborn actors or not. I imagine it probably was.
I don't know, but A Realm Reborn was when they fixed it. That's why it was reborn.
Well, they fixed gameplay and everything. So you haven't played 14. I haven't played 11, so I'll be relying on you for that. I mean, both Final Fantasy MMOs, they both kind of carve out a different path than classic games in the series, because 14 and 11, they're online games.
Yay! Leviathan! Oh, I actually really like you, but whatever.
I know. And 14 has remained popular for years, even becoming, I think, the most popular MMO that there is. I think a year or two ago it became that. And it keeps going and going with new expansion pack after expansion pack and lots and lots and lots of voice acting. And it's not fully voiced, but it's definitely heavily voiced, especially as it progresses. And I will say that the acting in Final Fantasy XIV is fascinating because it started out not so great. So in Realm Reborn, some of the characters were downright abysmal. Like, they just were not well acted.
You'd have to be bloody daft to turn your nose up at a chance like this.
And again, that's the casting fault, right? That's whoever chose that studio and whichever actors the studio chose. It's their fault when the acting sucks, most likely, when it sucks this all around.
So when you say A Realm Reborn, you're talking about 14 2.0 early on.
Yeah, so Realm Reborn is like after Bahamut destroys everything. That's from when I started the game. I started the game at Realm Reborn.
Yeah. So I played it before that.
So I'm assuming it probably has the same actors as Realm Reborn. They probably carried those through. I don't know, though. I actually have to look back. But
I don't know, man. They made it pretty clear from the Bahamut trailer that they blew the whole thing up and started from zero. So
maybe they did have totally different actors.
I would assume they just cleaned the slate and just said all new people.
That's interesting. I need to look that up.
Including bringing in Yoshi P and Creative Business Unit number 3 or whatever their group is called.
You're right. Which is the greatest name ever. Yeah. So in 14, Realm Reborn, some of the characters are abysmal, and they're not just abysmal in their voice acting performances, but in the personality of the characters too. So some of them just aren't very strong characters. But when it became clear that the game would survive beyond its first story because it had been turned around by Yoshi P and the team that was now doing this after the part that you played that shall not be named or spoken of by so many gamers.
Oh, it was terrible. It was terrible. And I didn't play A Realm Reborn, but I will tell you that going from 11 to 14, that first version of 14 was horrendous.
I've heard such. I watched a documentary that's actually in Japanese all about that.
It was so bad.
Ugh,
it was so bad. And I remember yes, it had newer graphics and everything, but I was like, you call this an upgrade? This is way worse than what I have. And then I was like, I'm not playing this thing anymore.
Interesting. Yeah. So, because Realm Reborn is good. It's playable, but it's not great. Right? It's probably great compared to what it was before they fixed it, but some of the characters weren't very strong, and the developers, the creative team of that game, when they realized it was going to continue and they could do expansion packs beyond Realm Reborn, they did something super crazy. They fired the voice acting studio they had been using, and they hired a completely different studio that was based out of the UK. And that, I believe, is the same studio they used for 16, actually. So after dozens of hours of playing this game, us gamers, myself included, suddenly noticed the voice of every single character change.
They regaled me with tales of a champion amongst champions, one whose tireless service to the crown merited the highest honor we might bestow.
Change is indeed a perilous thing, for we who seek it, and they who fear it.
And not only that, they went further than just changing the voice actors, but they completely redid a lot of the personalities of many of the main characters. And they basically killed off characters that clearly weren't as popular, even main ones.
In that regard, they are hardly alone.
So okay, these characters are going to die. These ones we're going to give them completely new personality to.
Be it in the snow or in the clouds, we few will see that the dawn's light shines again.
While I am grateful to our friends in the north for their hospitality, it isn't half good to be back.
Everybody's getting new voices. We're going to make this even better. And it was abrupt for those of us who are playing. We're like, whoa. But I'm so glad they did it because it was so much better when they changed it than it was before. And I had fun with Realm Reborn, but after that, it was an even better series, an even better game. The characters were so much stronger.
Ishgard is not wont to aid its neighbors, but that does not preclude it from manipulating them to serve its own interests.
Were I still commander of the Braves, I would doubtless have replied, for the future of Eorzea. But I'm not that man. Not anymore.
So somehow by using the same characters, at least in look and name, although some of them actually got a name change as well. There was one character who was a main character who wore a mask, and she was called Ida.
Oh, how to describe them. They look like gisselcreens, floating ones, that worship the primal Ramu.
Not only do they take off her mask, they give her a new name. She says she was pretending to be Ida all this time.
Oh, wow.
And she's a totally different look, totally different... Yeah.
You've known all along, haven't you? That I wasn't Ida.
Of course. We all recognized you at once. 'Twas Papalimo who persuaded us to maintain the charade.
And then she had a little companion who nobody really liked.
Conducive to peaceful communication.
So they just killed him.
Now, let us see how good a student I truly was.
Heroically.
Wow.
It was a super bold move, but it totally paid off.
Eorzea's blade of light, shearing through endless shrouds of darkness.
I have lost count of the many petty crises that I was helpless to resolve and of the people whose actions I could not understand.
The new characters, new personalities were just fantastic. And to this day, I absolutely love the twins, Alphinaud and Alisaie, both so well voiced. The main characters are all fantastically voiced.
One day that pertness is going to cost you your tail, my girl. Don't say I didn't warn you.
Same studio 16, right? Again, so this is some good casting going on.
Pray forgive this fool. But even now, I cannot let go of my dream. My dream of a tomorrow in which no child need freeze alone in the snow.
And that's just the start. I mean, there's a lot of great actors in 14. I would say Grahatia, Y'shtola, Urianger, Thancred, the twins, obviously. Everyone is good, right? As good as you can probably get, given that they didn't have the luxuries that the English actors had in 16, where they got to record English first. So they're still at a disadvantage in that way, but I think they did a really good job, especially when compared to other Final Fantasies and Sir Emmerich. I love Sir Emmerich.
Some wounds do not heal. The dead cannot be returned to us. But we, the living, can yet choose another course. Here and now, we can lay down this burden, this hatred, this vengeance.
You don't know who he is, Ernest. Just know that you're missing out. He's amazing.
Now that the dust has settled, what will you do? Not as a scion, I mean, but what do you want for yourself?
No more MMOs for me ever again.
You have children. They're your MMO now.
I was going to say, I don't have time. It's not that I'm against MMOs. I just have no time.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know, obviously, with 11, what was involved, right? So those were my college years and beyond, right? So
yeah,
I had time back then, not anymore.
Yeah, and you played for a decade, 11, right?
On and off, but for the better part of it, like 80 to 90% of that decade, yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. I played 14 for 2 years, and I'll pick it up again when I'm done with other Final Fantasy stuff.
Yeah.
It's just fun. But yeah, it's like 1 to 2 hours at night when the kids are in bed is all I can do.
Yeah.
That's it.
There was no such thing as 1 to 2 hours with 11.
Yeah.
No such thing. 1 to 2 hours, you couldn't actually do anything.
That's fair.
Different era, different game entirely.
Different game.